Welcome everyone, my name is Tatev Abrahamyan. We are going to be doing another forward chess/chess.com stream today. Thanks for that follow. So I've chosen a new book to go through today. Hopefully you guys will enjoy it, and it will encourage you to maybe purchase the book. And then I wanted to go through some of the games from Tata Still. I'm sure everyone has seen... Oh, hey Eric! Everyone has seen Magnus's game today. That was one for the books. Definitely historic. Magnus losing today, and it was a very high quality game too. Obviously, okay, Magnus did blunder something, but his opponent played very well to win that. So the book that we're gonna go through today, and then we'll switch to chess.com. As I mentioned, it's called Improve Your Chess Pattern Recognition, and obviously this is something we all need to do. And it's I think a little bit on a higher level. It's not like a beginner kind of pattern recognition, you know, like finding checkmates or forks or like basic tactics like that. It's a little bit on a higher level, but I think it has a lot of good examples. So if we look through the book, so it starts with the Octopus Knight, and it has pretty recent games, like 2012. This is not a very, the games aren't from a very long time ago. So one chapter that I've actually went through and I was showing to my students was the a not so innocent bystander. So it's about a knight that goes to h5 and becomes a very dangerous piece. So I think this is a really good chapter for people to study and to consider how to utilize a knight like this against the pawn on g7. The one that I want to go over today is the Lost Bishop, and it's about the c8 bishop. And as a French player, sorry, not the Lost Bishop. Wait, where did it go? The Lost Bishop. Oh, sorry. The Deceptive Bishop from c8. So there's two bishop chapters. So as a French player, this is, something that's very close to my heart. And I was looking through examples, so there's a variety of what to do with this French bishop. So I don't know if there are any French players here. I think it's a pretty interesting opening to play. It's kind of a difficult opening to play. You have to learn your structures really well, and you have to really kind of get a feel for the position, and you have to learn when to counterattack. So if you like that kind of a thing, then it's a good can be a good fit for you. It is a bit difficult to play because you do give up a lot of space, and I know a lot of people have an issue with it. And okay, clearly I don't. So it says sometimes a bishop can. So we'll just read through this chapter together, and then we'll move on to chess.com. So it says sometimes a bishop can seem underdeveloped or just plain bad. Appearances can be deceptive, though, and the bishop may turn to fulfill a valuable function or play a quite important role. Okay, so the reason I've set up my my setup is like this is because I want to cover some of the book, so when I ask you questions you don't see the answer. Sometimes I just scroll up too fast. So basically on the left side we have the book here, and we have the board here. And these are the chapters, so I can click which chapter I want to go on. We have an engine, which we're not going to use unless we really need it, but it's very cool tool to have when you're using an ebook, because sometimes you do get stuck. Today, like I found this study today on Instagram out of all places, and I haven't been able to solve it. So I'm getting very, very close to asking an engine, because I think it's an impossible one. But we're trying to stay away from engines unless we really get stuck and we really want to get an answer and we just have no idea. And if you don't have a coach whom you can ask and you're on your own, that's kind of one of your options, since if you don't have anywhere to turn to. But again, this is our last resort. All right. So let's get started. Okay, so it says the c8 bishop, like a bad bishop can, it's like what I said, the appearances can be deceptive. Yeah, and that's the thing, was how I feel about the c8 bishop too. Obviously I've you know, have a lot of experience with the French. I've been playing it for a very long time. And the thing about the c8 bishop, yes, it is a bad piece, but once the bishop comes into play, it becomes super powerful, because your opponent is playing the game under the impression that that bishop just doesn't exist, right? Because it's just not part of the game, it's not doing anything, so your opponent just doesn't have to deal with that bishop. So all of a sudden when that bishop joins the game, it just becomes really, really annoying. Problem is it's very difficult to make that bishop join the game. Another thing is you can try to exchange that bishop, but you have to know why, because sometimes that bishop is the piece that holds your entire position together, and then if you get rid of it, your position kind of falls apart. Or if you exchange it, then you don't have any breaks in the position anymore. So I actually have a very long French series on chess.com, and I do talk about French structures a lot. It is a bit old, I think it's by now like 6 years old, so a lot of the theory is outdated, but I do spend a lot of time talking about French structures, which I think is very helpful. Alright, so actually let's take a look from Black's point of view. So I will flip the board. So e5, so we're not focusing so much on the opening, although this doesn't happen to be a line that I play. Why purple? Why not purple? Sorry, I just kind of went fast. Okay, so this is one way of playing. I do put my queen on b6, but like with queen on b6, it's arguable. Some people think the queen is misplaced there, but it's a very classical way of playing the French. So this is a pretty classical French position, where, you know, what is like the whole point of this advanced variation? And I have to mention the advanced variation is very difficult to play for white. The structure is very hard to play, and sometimes your structure can just fall apart. And the problem is, of course, is d4 square. As we saw, Black is just piling on it, and it's kind of a backwards square, backwards pawn, but it's not an open file, so it's kind of an interesting dynamic we have here. And of course white has better center, more space and everything. Okay. So it says Bologan has opted for a continuation, which hadn't previously been thought to offer white many prospects. Black now exchanges his infamously bad French bishop. So it goes here, here, and here. And it says at first glance Black can be satisfied having achieved an important goal, but he's still lacking some space. So I'm wondering if there are any French players who figure out what is a downside of exchanging a bishop in this kind of structures. Like if you know what is, yeah, for Black, what is the downside, what is the problem? It makes something a little bit difficult. So for white, it's very obvious, right? Okay, so for white has put 2 pawns on the dark squares in the center, and which makes their dark square bishop bad. Like this is like the basic things we know about chess, right? You put your pawns on one color square, then you want to have the bishop of the opposite color. So you don't want to get stuck with the same color bishop as your opponent's pawns. Oh my god. You don't want to get stuck with the same color bishop as your pawn. So you don't want to put your pawns on the dark squares and then you're left with a dark square bishop. Like we did here, right? We we put all our pawns on the light squares and we got rid of our light square bishop. Okay, so yeah, so you're right. Oh my god, what is it? Ah, cement, sorry. Yeah, you're right, because one of Black's ideas is to go f6 and to break apart the center. Because you are lacking space, you have given up the center, so you do have to fight back somehow. You have to do something about the center, so you don't want to just give up the center and just kind of, you know, not do anything. So f6 will, in the long term, weaken this e6 square. So this is like, this is the interesting dynamic in the French. Because once you get rid of your bishop, all your breaks become very, very difficult. Like this f6 break, which what you want to do in the French to fight against the center, becomes very difficult. Because your e6 pawn is very weak. On the other hand, if you play f6 and your opponent takes, and then you have this bishop on d7, which helps you with your f6 pawn, but at the same time, now you just have a bishop that's just there to save a pawn. So it's, you know, it's kind of like you have to know when to do these things. So chasing the knight away. So the white's idea is to go f4 and just start shoving this pawn. Oh man. Alright. Oh, hopefully you guys don't see this. No, you don't see it. First question, white to move. What would you guys play here? So it's a question for everyone. So black played knight g6 attacking your knight. What would you do? Would you exchange? Would you defend? Would you move your knight? And why? So we have suggestions. So one wants to go knight hg2, the other person wants to go to knight eg2. So let's determine which one. So I don't think, I think we can agree, right? So you don't want to take on g6, like, you don't want to allow this, right? This is just awkward. You're opening the H file for me. Like, why do any of this? I think we can dismiss this pretty easily. Like, why allow this? And then you're making the f4 break for yourself a lot more difficult. If you go f4, your king is just weak for no reason. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So you have to either defend the horse or move it. Okay, so knight hg2 and knight eg2 both are being suggested. Obviously the logical moves. Not too many options, right? We don't want to lose our knight. Yeah, so knight hg2 makes sense, and because white has more space. So this is one of the rules or general rules of chess, right? When you have more space, you don't want to trade pieces, because when your opponent doesn't have space, their pieces start to step on each other's toes, so they have like X number of squares available, and the more pieces they have to fill up those squares, or the more pieces they have, the more squares they need for them, right? So like the math, obviously, we can work it out. Like if you only have like 5 squares for your pieces and you have 5 pieces, then you just cannot move. And it says, having more space, white avoids further exchanges. Both black's remaining bishop and the knight g6 would like to use the e7 square, a well-known problem in this kind of position. Yeah, because like when f4, f5 comes, you have to deal with it, and your bishop, that's the thing about the French, your bishop has to go to e7, you don't have a whole lot of squares. So bishop e3, castle, and h4. Alright. And it says take on g5, or this take looks scary for black. I mean, yeah, it does look scary because the queen is coming to h5. Let's say if you do something like this, even okay, something like this may not. I don't know, this bishop's going to... this bishop is going places, but okay, let's check out this line. Like something like this, g5, so maybe you have to play h6. Okay, again, I'm gonna take... starting to look a bit sketchy. And then, like, we don't want to weaken our king too much because our queen is on the other side of the board, so we might end up with a problem. Alright, f5. And f8, so white is shoving, black is going back. And it says here the bishop on d7 would clearly have had a defensive function on d7. And this is what I was talking about. Once you get rid of your bishop, playing f6 becomes so difficult because Now your e6 is a target, your knight on f8 is awkward, right? You would rather, like, you would want to move your knight from f8, but you can't. So things are starting to become maybe a little bit awkward for black. So you went bishop d6. On the other hand, the knight on f8 is a really nice defensive piece. Alright, so white to move. What would you guys do here? So this is a very... I don't think white's light square bishop would be that scary to me because, you know, you'd just be staring at your g6 pawn. f4 is a popular... So we want to play f4, bishop f4, knight f4, so someone gonna suggest queen f4, just, you know, to keep this trend going. Okay, so in the game, bishop f4 was played. It says white takes opportunity to offer the exchange of his own bad bishop, after which he will gain control of several important dark squares. So once e5, once e6, oh my god, once f6 has been played, hopefully you guys can figure out what squares become important, and that's of course the e5 square, because you do want to make sure e5 doesn't happen, so you do want to, for your knight to land there. So black's king is a bit shaky, right? This h7, this h-file is very scary, but luckily my knight is very good defensive piece, and you cannot checkmate me on h7. So queen goes there, so you take, I can take back with the queen, so my queen can rejoin and I can have some control over the dark squares. So knight f3, takes, the rook joins. You want to defend the knight because you want to have control of the e5 square, you know, you don't want something like this. This can be problematic because the queen will go to h5, knight will go to f7 maybe, and I can checkmate you. So instead rook c3 was played, rook d2, he wants to go rook d1, really chasing this knight. So black looks for some activity. And what would you guys play in this position? White to play. Oh no! Sorry guys. So this is why I shouldn't scroll so fast. So this is why I have my video bigger, but apparently it's not big enough. I did not mean to scroll so fast, but yes. Rook d3. And I don't want to like cover the book because I want you guys to visualize what this looks like, because there's always new people coming and they're not familiar with the app. So I want them to have a visual of what it's like, otherwise I would just not have the book. But yeah, so rook d3, because if I think about it, these rooks are not really going to hurt me and this king is just weak. So let's see how the game ended. More Tatev, let's... I can flip the board if you guys want to look at it from white's point of view. Queen went to a6, takes, covering the diagonal, so there is no funny business here. So you don't really want to leave your king. What is a good opening for black pieces? Obviously the French. Can't you see how well the French is doing in this game? And h5. I mean, king g3 is a pretty mean move. My queen... Wait. What's the point of this move? Why not have knight f7? Is there something wrong with knight f7 that I'm... Oh, knight f7 runs into something really funny. Who can figure out? Let's not move the pieces. Like, if knight f7, what can black do? I don't think it works, actually. Or maybe it does. Oh shit, it does. So, okay, maybe I should move it. If you don't figure it out, I'll move it. But let's try to figure out what will happen if knight f7. Queen h7. Queen h7, there's a knight that's blocking. But okay. Why not knight f7 here? You're threatening mate. You cannot take and give back because it's still checkmate. Yeah, I mean, this is a really nice tactic, and you know, like, this is something very easy to blunder in a blitz game because you think you're just winning, but knight g6 is a nice counter attack because now if you take my queen, it's a fork. And this is a pretty embarrassing way of losing the game. I mean, a pretty hurtful way. So in the game he played king g3, and king g3 is, yeah, king g3 is pretty painful. Your opponent plays king g3 and you just have nothing. So you played here. I would have blundered that for sure. Yeah, man, you always have to look out for tactics. Like, you always have to look out for tactics, both for you and your opponent. Because, you know, there's something, okay, I don't want to say always, because sometimes the position just doesn't offer anything, but you always want to be on high alert, especially when you're about to win the game. Like, my advice always is when you're about to win the game, like, pause and basically consider, like, every legal move in the position to make sure you're not blundering anything. Excuse me. So in this position, obviously, if you play knight f7, you're not sitting and thinking like a6 and b6, a5 and b5. So you kind of dismiss those pretty quickly, right? And then you start looking for like anything that can there be in the position. Because if you blunder something like this, then your game okay, here you probably lose. Well, I guess you don't lose, but your game does start over, right? So in this position, where were we? Okay, if you go here, obviously you don't have to take the queen. You can take this way. So they cannot take with the rook because it's mate. So I have to take this way. So you take, and like you've given. So in this particular position, should be just a draw. But you know, in other positions, your game just starts all over again. So why be hasty and just give away everything if you can just spend a few more minutes and make sure you're not blundering anything and just win the game. Like, that is my approach, that is my suggestion. Sometimes you don't have the time to do it, sometimes, you know, you do it and you still miss something, but I think that's a good idea in general. Yeah, but king g3 is super mean. Alright, let me show you another example. Okay, so I'll read his note. And a seemingly smooth victory, where the exchange of light squared bishop proved insufficient and allowed white too much space and time on the king side. You would have never seen that, but again, if you force yourself to do it, that's the thing, right? Like, if you don't see something naturally, you have to come up with some methods of finding moves that don't come naturally to you. So like literally when you like sitting here and looking at every legal move that makes sense, I'm not saying you do it in every position because you'll just be exhausted and you just can't, you will never be able to move. But like when you think you're about to win the game, you think I'm gonna make this move when it's over, it does make sense to just go through every move, make sure you're not blundering everything. And here you have to force yourself to look at a move like knight g6, right? Because what are you doing? You're asking yourselves, let's go back. You're asking yourself, what can my opponent do to stop this mate? So it's not a lot of moves, it's not a6, it's not b6, right? It has to be something on this side of the board. I'm doing a lot of hand gestures today. So then you force yourself to do it, and maybe eventually, you know, like this can become more natural to you, or like you start finding them faster, or at least maybe once you actually do find it, even though you miss it like 1 out of 10 times, and then it becomes a little bit easier. Because you really, like, if it doesn't come naturally to you, how do you make things more natural, right? You have to find ways to do it. So do check out Forward Chess. You don't have to check out the app. You can use it on the web version. Again, like I kind of prefer the app. So, you know, in my library I have I have tons of books that I've recommended, quite a few of them. Yeah, you go and go to the store and you do have your $10 coupon right here. It's welcome to FC, so you can purchase, if there's a book you really wanted, you can purchase it for $10 off. And this book that we're looking through it, it's pretty good book. I like it, and so far, this is not my library, this is the store. In my library I don't have anything anti-French. So I'm just scrolling through the library. Where is it? Improve your chess pattern recognition. So it's $17.99. So you can purchase this book for $7.99. And it has very good examples in it. I told you like about the knight going to h5, right? It says like the imposter or something, not piece, and then like how good when a knight goes to h5, what a good attacking piece it is. Okay, there's a Dreyev book that you can buy. True Dreyev books. Okay, there's tons of books for you guys to explore. So if there is, I can go back to my library. So we did the woodpecker method. We've done this. This one's kind of difficult. We've done Polgar's books, the invisible chess moves that I really like, the 100 endgames you must know. And what else have we gone through together? So these are my actual books. So as you can see, there is nothing that says French in it. So not exposed. I have to clear my name and my reputation. I would never do anything anti-French. Except for these examples that I showed. No, but I don't think the examples I showed were anti-French. I think they showed like how to respect the French bishop and not just give it away anytime. Alright guys, see you soon.